The dog knew before I did. That's what haunts me most. Milo stopped greeting me at the door. No tail wags, no bounding down the hallway. Just silence, that stiff, uneasy kind of silence animals give off when something in the air shifts. I thought maybe he was sick. Now I know better. He wasn't sick. He was warning me. My name's Jordan. I'm 29. I run a small electronics repair shop in Midtown. Nothing fancy, but I like it. Keeps my hands busy. My girlfriend, Camille, is 27. She works in digital marketing, fully remote, unless there's a big meeting or a client event. At least, that's what she told me. We've been together 3 years, lived together for 2. Long enough to share routines, grocery runs, weekend movies, dumb inside jokes. And her dog, Milo, a golden retriever she's had since college, became mine just as much as hers. We were a little family. The change came quietly. She started waking up earlier, wearing nicer clothes just to sit at a desk in our apartment. Said she had Zoom calls. Then suddenly she had in-person ones. Meetings, lunches, networking. I didn't think much of it at first. People get busy. Work picks up. But she started putting on perfume she used to save for special occasions. Heels she hadn't touched in months. Her laptop stayed shut on days she claimed she'd been working nonstop. One afternoon I found a hoodie in the back seat of her car. Oversized, maroon, and clearly not mine. I picked it up. It smelled like cheap men's cologne, sharp, synthetic, unfamiliar. I stared at it for a full minute before setting it back down. She never brought it up. Neither did I. I didn't want to be that guy. Suspicious. Insecure. But things added up fast after that. Her phone started staying face down on the table. Notifications disappeared mid-screen. She laughed less around me. When I told her something about work, she'd nod without really hearing. She used to come into the shop sometimes, just to sit with me for a while. Said it helped her feel close. That stopped too. I told myself it was the stress. Deadlines. Burnout. I told myself what people in denial tell themselves, that love means trust, and trust means you don't ask too many questions. Then one evening, she said she had a client dinner downtown. She left in a rush. Hours passed. No check-ins. Around 11, she sent a brief message saying the night had run late and she might sleep at her friend's place. That was it. No warmth. No real explanation. Just a line meant to close the door. I stared at my phone, waiting to feel something definite. Anger, maybe, or clarity. But all I felt was cold. And when I looked down, Milo was watching me from the foot of the bed, ears low, eyes dark. Then he let out a sound, a low growl, barely audible. The kind of noise dogs make when they're trying to protect someone. That's when I realized he didn't trust her anymore. And maybe I shouldn't either. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling every minute crawl by. Milo eventually jumped down and curled up near the bedroom door, like he was guarding it, or keeping something out, maybe even her. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was sharp, and it pressed into me until I couldn't tell if it was just suspicion or something deeper, something already broken. She came home the next morning, quietly. Keys turning slow in the lock like she was trying not to wake the dead. I stayed in bed with my eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. I listened to her take off her shoes, walk around the kitchen, pour coffee. She didn't come in, just moved through the house like a guest in someone else's life. When I finally got up, she was already dressed. Said she had another meeting. Her tone was flat, casual. No apology, no explanation. And I didn't ask for one. I just nodded, fed the dog, and took my time brewing coffee. She kissed the top of my head and left before I could react. I sat at the kitchen table long after she was gone, hands wrapped around a cup that went cold without me noticing. Everything looked normal. The chairs, the shoes by the door, her keys still on the hook. But none of it felt real. I could still smell her perfume hanging in the air. The one she'd started wearing again, floral, faint, not the usual kind she wore around the house. I realized then that I couldn't remember the last time she wore perfume just for me. That day at work, I couldn't focus. I replaced a phone screen, diagnosed a water-damaged laptop, talked to a couple regulars, but I was running on autopilot. My head wasn't in the shop. It was replaying the past few months. Her sudden gym interest. The moments she'd laugh at her phone and quickly swipe away. Her calendar getting busier, but her stories getting thinner. I'd chalked it up to stress, to burnout. I wanted to believe she was just overwhelmed, tired of the same walls, the same routine. But now I wasn't so sure. Late that afternoon, I found myself back in her car. She'd left her keys on the kitchen counter. I told myself I was just checking the mileage. I don't even know why, but I ended up searching the back seat again, then the glove compartment. Nothing obvious. Just napkins, hand sanitizer, a half-used chapstick I didn't recognize. I almost gave up until I opened the center console. There was a small receipt folded in half, dated 5 days ago. A bar downtown, one I'd never been to. 2 cocktails, 1 appetizer, paid in cash. Her name wasn't on it, but the timestamp was 9:47 p.m. That was the night she told me she stayed late working on a campaign brief. I stared at that piece of paper like it might confess something. It didn't, but I could feel the shift happening inside me. The doubt I'd been ignoring wasn't just a flicker anymore. It was starting to spread like a slow, consuming fire. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to be absolutely sure. But I knew something had started, something I couldn't undo. The space between us wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical. Me on one side, her on the other, and somewhere in between, someone else. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to notice. She didn't say where she'd been, didn't offer a lie, didn't even pretend to care that I might ask. The next morning, she woke up like it was any other day, made coffee, fed the dog, scrolled through her phone at the counter like she hadn't snuck back into bed at midnight with perfume on her neck that didn't belong to me. It was that kind of silence that's not just avoidance, it's calculation. The silence of someone who thinks they've gotten away with something. And maybe she had, because I still hadn't said anything. I watched her move through the kitchen, her hair still damp from a shower she took in the middle of the night. I wondered if it was to wash him off her. Whoever he was. She caught me looking at her once, gave me a half smile. I gave nothing back. She didn't seem to notice. I went to work, but I didn't get anything done. My hand shook every time I tried to solder a motherboard. I kept zoning out, staring at nothing. I didn't even realize I was gripping my phone so tightly until my fingers started cramping. I kept checking it for no reason, refreshing her page, checking her last active status, opening our messages, rereading them like they belonged to someone else. I started thinking about the little things I'd overlooked, all the shifts that didn't seem like much at the time, how she used to call me just to say hi, how her texts slowly turned from miss you to don't forget to grab milk, how the excitement in her voice disappeared. It wasn't just infidelity. It was abandonment in slow motion. That night, she cooked pasta, garlic bread, salad. The kind of meal she used to make when she felt guilty after snapping at me. She poured us wine, sat across the table, told me about her day like she hadn't spent the night before in someone else's arms. Her tone was light, relaxed. Her eyes were clearer than I'd seen them in weeks. She was happier. That realization hit me harder than anything. She was happier with the weight of our relationship off her shoulders. Happier knowing she could do what she wanted, lie to my face, and I wouldn't stop her. Happier in whatever version of herself she got to be when I wasn't around. I nodded when she spoke, chewed my food, drank the wine, played along. But inside, something had shifted again. Not suspicion this time, not even hurt. Just this cold, emotionless distance that felt like a curtain dropping. That weekend, I stayed busy. Cleaned the apartment from top to bottom, took Milo for longer walks, went into the shop even though I didn't need to, anything to avoid being near her. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. We didn't fight. We didn't talk. We coexisted, 2 people sharing a space while pretending not to notice the silence ballooning between them. Sunday night, she fell asleep on the couch. TV still playing some show we used to love. I turned the volume down and just watched her for a while. Her breathing was soft, steady. She looked peaceful. I felt nothing. No warmth, no anger, no sadness. Just a single, heavy thought I couldn't shake. Whatever she used to feel for me, it was gone. And whatever I used to feel for her was starting to rot. We used to laugh a lot. I don't even know when that stopped. Somewhere between the routine and the distance, the laughter faded, and it wasn't replaced with fighting or silence. Just noise. Background TV. Keyboard clicks. Forks tapping plates. The kind of sound that fills space without meaning anything. Now, that's all we had. Monday morning, I woke up before her, sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, and stared out the window. It was raining. Not hard, just enough to make everything feel slower. I listened to the clock tick, thought about how I used to love mornings like this, when she'd sit across from me in her oversized hoodie, sleepy eyes, hair a mess, feet on my lap. Now, I couldn't even remember the last time we shared a meal without her phone in her hand. When she finally walked in, she looked surprised to see me up. said something about her calendar being packed, kissed my head like nothing was wrong. I nodded, took another sip of coffee. Neither of us brought up the weekend, the late return, the receipt, the phone call to Tara. It all lived unspoken between us, dense like humidity, unavoidable, but untouched. At work, I watched the shop fill with customers and noise and emails, and still, none of it pulled me out of the fog. I found myself looking at couples differently, wondering how many of them had secrets. How many of them had dogs who already knew the truth? How many were pretending just like us? Later that evening, I came home to find her on the couch, smiling at her screen. She didn't hear me at first. When she did, she put her phone down too fast, like someone guilty. I said nothing, just walked past her, patted Milo on the head, and went to shower. That's where I finally let myself feel it, standing under the water, hands on the tile. The quiet pain of watching something die before your eyes and knowing you can't stop it. She didn't love me anymore. She might not even like me. And the hardest part was knowing I still loved her. I didn't want to, but I did. And that love was becoming a weight, one I couldn't carry much longer. And I knew I had to start letting go. I stopped checking her location. I used to, not obsessively, but occasionally, just to see if she was still at work or on her way home, or really with the people she said she was with. But now it felt pointless. The app said we were still connected, but in every way that mattered, we weren't. Tracking a person doesn't bring them back. We moved around the apartment like distant relatives. Her smile became something she wore, not something that came from anywhere real. And mine disappeared without me noticing. I became quiet, not out of anger, just self-preservation. I was tired of trying to be heard by someone who didn't care to listen. Wednesday night, she got a call around 9:30. Said it was Tara. Took it in the other room. I muted the TV and listened, not to the words, just the rhythm. She laughed softly, whispered. I heard the faint thump of a dresser drawer closing, then the sound of the window cracking open. Her voice dropped even lower. I turned the volume back up and stared at the screen, but none of it made sense. Not the movie, not my life. She came out 20 minutes later like nothing happened, sat next to me, and scrolled through her phone like the call never happened. Asked if I wanted to order Thai this weekend. I nodded, not because I wanted to, just because saying no felt like more effort than it was worth. I started avoiding the apartment more, stayed at the shop late, even when there wasn't work to do. Took Milo on longer walks. He stuck close, like he knew I needed it. I started going to the diner on the corner just to sit and eat and listen to other people talk. Strangers felt more honest than the woman sleeping in my bed. One night, as I sat alone with a plate of fries and a refill of coffee, I looked around and realized I hadn't laughed, really laughed, in weeks, maybe months. I used to laugh with her, over stupid things, over nothing. Now, silence felt safer than any sound she could make. The worst lies aren't spoken, they're lived, and she was living one right in front of me. It wasn't the phone calls or the late nights that confirmed it. It wasn't even the lie about Tara. It was the way she started looking at me, or, more accurately, how she didn't. That kind of absence you only notice when someone used to see you completely and now just doesn't. She stopped locking eyes with me when she spoke. Her gaze drifted just over my shoulder, or down at her phone, or off toward the wall behind me. I became background noise in my own home. Friday morning, she got dressed like she was going to a wedding. New blouse, carefully done hair, subtle perfume. She said she had a client lunch, some investor type, big contract. I nodded while pouring coffee. She didn't notice that I didn't ask any questions. She didn't notice that I wasn't smiling. Maybe that was the worst part, how little it took to fool her. Or maybe how little I mattered to the version of herself she was trying to protect. After she left, I sat on the edge of the couch for a long time, just staring at the door. Milo sat beside me, head against my leg, quiet as ever. Eventually, I got up and opened her laptop. Not out of impulse, out of exhaustion. I didn't want to spy. I didn't want to be that guy. But I also couldn't keep pretending I didn't already know. The password hadn't changed. She probably didn't expect I'd ever look. I didn't find anything scandalous. No open tabs with explicit messages. No damning photos. Just a calendar with blocks marked client follow-up that didn't match the emails in her inbox. Meetings with no meeting links. Travel notes that referenced restaurants instead of business addresses. Most of it was vague, easily dismissed, but to me it felt obvious. I knew how her work was structured. I knew how she used to take pride in planning and precision. None of this matched. Later that afternoon, I checked her credit card history online. I had access. She'd shared it once when we were budgeting. I wasn't supposed to still use the login, but I hadn't let it go. I told myself it was for emergencies. I guess this counted. She'd bought concert tickets. 2 of them. Last week. The date? One night she said she did drinks with a coworker after a long day. There it was. Quiet confirmation. Not a crash, not a confession. Just a click. A line of text on a screen. 2 seats paid in full. No lies spoken. No fights had. Just evidence that the life I was trying to hold onto was already being lived without me. Once you know for sure, you start preparing for the collapse without realizing it. Not with boxes or bags, with small shifts. You stop offering things. You stop asking questions you don't want the answers to. You stop pretending you don't hear the second buzz on her phone when she leaves the room. The difference between wondering and knowing is subtle but final. Like crossing a threshold you can't come back from. That weekend I didn't say much. We went through the motions of a normal life, but there was nothing real under it. She asked if I wanted to go to her friend's art show on Sunday. I told her I had work at the shop. That was a lie. I just couldn't sit next to her in public anymore. Couldn't smile while she introduced me as her boyfriend when I knew I'd already been quietly replaced. She left looking casual, like it wasn't the end of anything. Just another Sunday. I stayed home, watched the clock, walked Milo around the block twice. When she came back, she had a small print tucked under her arm and a story about how long the line for drinks had been. I nodded. That was the extent of our conversation. She didn't ask how my day had gone. She didn't ask what I'd eaten, or if I'd eaten. Her eyes didn't even scan the room the way they used to when she walked in, that automatic, gentle awareness of shared space. Now she just entered and occupied. That night, she fell asleep quickly. I lay beside her, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I started writing in my head, not a letter, not something to leave on the counter. Just the truth, how I felt, how she made me feel, how she didn't even try to stop this from happening. Not once. How she let the silence fill in the cracks, and then watched it quietly eat everything we built. By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge. Not drama. Just an end. She was leaving for a client workshop that afternoon, gone until late. I told her I might crash at a friend's place to work on a project. She didn't ask which friend. Didn't seem to care either way. She nodded, kissed my cheek, and left like it was any other Tuesday. It would be the last normal day she'd ever have with me in it. While she was gone, I opened the closet and stared at my side. I didn't pack. Not yet. But I took inventory. What mattered? What didn't? What I would take? What I'd leave behind? You don't need much when someone you love forgets how to love you back. Just clarity. And a way out. I didn't rush. That's the part one remember most. There was no panic, no flurry of boxes or drawers yanked open. Just silence. Intent. I moved through the apartment like a guest packing for a weekend away. My duffel bag lay open on the bed. I folded each shirt, each item, like I wasn't walking away from a relationship but from a fire that had already burned itself out. I left behind everything that didn't feel like mine anymore. The coffee mug she bought on our first trip, the hoodie she used to wear when it rained, the book we never finished reading together. I didn't want reminders. I wanted distance. Milo watched me the whole time. No barking. No confusion. Just quiet eyes that tracked me from room to room. I think he knew, the same way he'd known something had shifted before I ever did. He followed me to the door when I finally zipped the bag, sat beside it like he was waiting for the verdict. And I knew. There was no version of this where I left him behind. He'd seen everything, heard the silence, carried the weight with me in the late nights and the long walks. He wasn't just a dog. He was proof that something still felt real in the house we used to share. I clipped on his leash, grabbed the bag, and we stepped out into the hallway. I didn't leave a note. No dramatic last words. She didn't deserve closure scripted like a goodbye letter. She'd had every opportunity to speak, to notice, to care. Instead, she chose distraction. She chose lies. She chose someone else. I drove to my brother's place, small guest room, nothing fancy. I told him just the basics. He didn't ask for details. Just helped me carry the bag in and tossed a blanket on the bed. That was enough. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Milo curled up near my feet like he used to, relaxed again. Like something had finally released. Like he didn't have to guard me anymore. She texted around midnight. Just one line. Where are you? I didn't answer. Because it wasn't a real question. She wasn't asking out of concern. She was asking out of inconvenience. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I was done waiting to be noticed. She showed up the next day, mid-afternoon. I saw her car from the window, parked half-crooked in the driveway, hazard lights blinking like she'd barely stopped moving long enough to turn them on. She didn't knock right away, just stood outside the door, hands shoved in her coat pockets, eyes scanning the porch like she wasn't sure this was where she was supposed to be. When she finally knocked, I waited a moment before answering. My brother had taken Milo out, which I was grateful for. The last thing I needed was her seeing him here and thinking that meant she still had a place in my life. I opened the door. She looked tired, not just physically, but in that way people look when something clicks too late. Her hair was messy, no makeup, eyes red like she'd been crying or trying not to. Her voice was soft when she finally spoke. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside, let her in, not because I owed her anything, but because I needed to see her face when I told her what I already knew. She walked in like she'd been here 1,000 times, which she had, just never in this context. Not as the one being left behind. She sat on the couch like it was hers. I stayed standing. She didn't start with an apology. Of course not. She asked questions instead. Where I'd gone, why I hadn't told her, if this was a joke, a punishment. That part stung, not because of what she said, but because even now, she thought it was about her. I told her I left because I couldn't keep pretending we were still something we weren't. I told her I knew about the late nights, the fake meetings, the concert tickets. I told her I'd stopped believing her months ago and had been mourning our relationship long before I walked out the door. She didn't argue, just sat there, eyes fixed on a spot on the floor. Her mouth opened once like she wanted to say something, but no words came. That silence? It was finally honest. She whispered, "It didn't mean to happen like this." But it did, because she let it. She asked if there was any chance, any way we could fix it. I told her no, not because I hated her, not even because she cheated, but because she watched me fade and didn't reach for me. I told her I hoped she found whatever it was she'd been chasing. Then I opened the door. And this time, she was the one walking out. She didn't text again after that. Not that night. Not the day after. Not even a week later. That surprised me more than anything, how fast she let go once the door closed behind her. No last-minute confessions. No desperate calls. Just silence. Maybe she thought leaving quietly would make it easier. Or maybe she was already too far gone to reach back. I stayed at my brother's place for a while. Milo adjusted fast. Slept soundly. Ate more. Barked more. That told me everything I needed to know. He was no longer treading around someone he didn't trust. There was peace in him again. And that peace started to bleed into me. The nights were the hardest. That strange stretch of hours where nothing needs doing. That's when memories hit the loudest. Our first night in the apartment. The way she used to hum when she folded laundry. That dumb dance she'd do when a good song came on while cooking. At first, those memories hurt. But then something shifted. They started to feel like someone else's life. Like I just watched a movie too many times to believe it was real anymore. I started sleeping in the middle of the bed again. Not out of defiance, just because I could. I cleared out my phone one night. Deleted pictures. Voicemails. Notes. There was a playlist she made during our second year together, full of songs she swore reminded her of me. I almost skipped over it. But then I pressed play. I let it run while I sat on the floor, eyes closed, letting each song strip away what was left of the illusion. Halfway through, I hit delete. Not out of spite, not even sadness, just finality. I visited the apartment once. Needed to grab a few things I left behind. She wasn't home. I let myself in, moved through it quickly. The air smelled different. Her shoes by the door. One less photo on the wall. Something about that made it feel colder than I expected. Not angry, just hollow. I didn't leave a note. I didn't take anything extra. Just what was mine. Back at my brother's place, I unpacked slowly. Sat on the edge of the bed with Milo beside me. I scratched behind his ear. He didn't flinch this time. He leaned into it, tail thumping softly. I exhaled. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I was actually breathing again. Not just surviving, but returning. It's been 3 months. Not a long time, depending on who you ask, but long enough to notice what's changed. I don't flinch when I hear her name in passing. I don't scroll through old photos. I don't wait for messages that aren't coming. The first few weeks felt like I was walking underwater, every sound muffled, every breath slow, every step heavier than it needed to be. But now, the surface is closer. Some days, I even feel the sun on my face again. She reached out once. A short message. Just said she hoped I was doing okay. I stared at it for a long time, thought about what it meant, what it didn't. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because the version of me that would have answered, he doesn't live here anymore. I went back to the shop full time. The work helped. So did Milo. Every night he curls up on the floor beside my bed, like he's standing guard. Some mornings he wakes me with his nose under my arm, like he's checking that I'm still here, still breathing, still okay. I started jogging again, cooking more, reading books that had sat unopened on shelves for years. Things I hadn't done when I was busy holding up the weight of a one-sided relationship. There's this thing that happens when you stop chasing someone who isn't turning back. You realize how much of yourself you've been letting slip away. I talk to my brother more now. I see my mom on weekends. I reconnected with a couple old friends I hadn't made time for. One of them asked if I was seeing anyone. I told him not yet. Not because I'm closed off, but because I'm finally okay being by myself. I used to think closure meant answers, an apology, something spoken. But now I know, closure is a quiet decision. It's the day you stop needing to understand why they let go. It's the morning you wake up and realize you're not holding space for someone who never planned to return. Camille is just a name now, just a chapter I've finished. And the version of me that stayed, the one who loved through silence, who stayed faithful in the face of distance, who tried even when she didn't, you didn't lose. He made it out, whole, and he's still here.